This is your Care Bear Cousins read-along book. Every time you hear this chime, it means it's time to turn the page in your storybook. Are you ready to start the story? Okay, here we go with the Care Bear Cousins in A Day in the Forest of Feelings. It was a wonderific day in the Forest of Feelings. For weeks, the Care Bear Cousins had been hard at work, planning a very special surprise birthday party for their friend, Swiftheart Rabbit. Now the big day had finally arrived, and everyone waited excitedly for the celebration to begin. Braveheart Lion, however, looked worried as he came upon Proudheart Cat.
Is everything ready?
Braveheart Lion asked. He knew that Proudheart had a knack for doing everything just right. That was why Proudheart had been elected chief of party planning.
Just a few finishing touches and we'll be ready,
said Proudheart confidently.
Everything will be just perfect.
That's good. I do want this party to be one that Swiftheart Rabbit will remember,
said Braveheart Lion. Meanwhile, on a plump pink cloud, Lotsa Elephant was sharing his excitement with his special bird friends.
I just love surprise parties,
Lotsa Elephant squealed.
especially when they're for someone special.
The birds nodded and flapped their wings in agreement. Not far away, Gentle Heart Lamb was busy putting up the last of the party balloons with the help of his special bird buddies.
We must hurry,
said Gentle Heart happily.
Everything must be in place before Swiftheart arrives.
The birds agreed and flew the last balloon to Gentle Heart to hang in place. When all the balloons were hung, Gentle Heart Lamb hurried to the meadow to help Braveheart Lion gather bunches of beautiful flowers for the celebration.
These will be just perfect,
exclaimed Braveheart Lion.
Yes, and they smell so sweetly too,
added Gentle Heart Lamb.
Let's hurry and fill my basket.
In a tree near the Rainbow River, Bright Heart Raccoon and Playful Heart Monkey were gathering the last of the heart-shaped fruit they needed for the party picnic.
These are just what we need to make the party even sweeter,
said Bright Heart.
I'll catch the one on the low branch,
suggested Playful Heart Monkey as he swung on a rainbow rope.
And you can get the higher ones. Good idea,
agreed Bright Heart. Down in the Sunshine Meadow, Proudheart Cat was practicing the birthday dance he'd made up in honor of this very special occasion.
1, 2, 3, turn. 1, 2, 3, turn. Slide, slide. 1, 2, 3. I think I've got it.
And the little bird buddies fluttered in agreement. Moments later, Playful Heart Monkey whisked by on a rainbow cloud boat, shouting to Proudheart Cat,
Hurry, hurry, spread the word! It's almost time to start! We mustn't be late for this special date!
Soon, all the cousins began to gather in the Glen of Goodness to wait for the surprise to begin. First came Lotsa Elephant, with Gentle Heart Lamb close behind. Bringing up the rear was Bright Heart Raccoon, pulling Cozy Heart Penguin in a heart cart. From the other side of the glen came Braveheart Lion and Proudheart Cat. As they passed under the tallest love fruit tree, they looked up to find Playful Heart Monkey sitting on a branch. He had scrambled up the tree to be the lookout.
He's coming! He's coming!
Shouted Playful Heart.
Get out of sight fast!
Braveheart Lion turned to Proudheart Cat and whispered,
Hurry! Let's run and hide before Swiftheart Rabbit sees us.
As soon as Swiftheart Rabbit came into the glen, the cousins jumped out from behind the trees, throwing streamers and confetti and shouting,
Surprise! Happy birthday!
Lots of Heart Elephant and Loyal Heart Dog danced around and around, shouting happily,
It worked! It worked! Our surprise worked!
Swiftheart Rabbit was so surprised that he tumbled back, giggling in the soft meadow grass. A few moments later, when he'd caught his breath, Swiftheart exclaimed,
Gee, this is the best birthday treat I've ever had. And you all are the very, very best friends anyone could ever have.
Then taking one end of a giant rainbow wishbone, with Treatheart Pig at the other end, Swiftheart Rabbit said,
If I could make a wish, I would wish we could have a party every day.
After Swiftheart had opened many presents, Brightheart Raccoon rushed up excitedly, shouting,
Wait! We have one more very special birthday surprise!
Then the cousins brought out a beautiful heart-covered box, all tied up with brightly colored satin ribbons.
I wonder what this surprise can be,
said Swiftheart with a big grin as he carefully untied the bow and lifted the top. Out popped hundreds of tiny love-shaped rainbow-colored hearts. Then came a beautiful flash of rainbow light that lit up the sky for miles around.
Why, this is the very best gift of all.
Exclaimed Swiftheart.
And it's something we can all share.
As the sun shone brightly over the forest of feelings, Swiftheart explained to Brightheart Raccoon,
The gift we can all share is the very best gift in the world. Love.